So with NFL OTAs ongoing and the Green Bay Packers now in week 2 of OTAs, we started to get some injury updates on some players that either weren't at practice or have had injury concerns in the past. I'm mainly speaking here about Christian Watson and then also Tucker Kraft, who we saw not present at OTAs, and we did just get more updates on his injury and what to expect going forward. And then as for Christian Watson, we of course know he had a lot of hamstring or lower leg soft tissue injuries in the past. He went to Madison this offseason with Eric Stokes to try to find the source of all those lower leg injuries, and it seems like he finally did, as we did get an update on what the root cause may have been. And as I mentioned, the OTAs are ongoing right now, but only a select few are open to the media, so we haven't seen a lot of what's been going on with the Green Bay Packers. We had one session open last week, and then we also have another session open tomorrow to the media, so be on the lookout for both videos tomorrow on this channel. OTA highlights, and of course the recap as well. And if you're new here, definitely go down and click subscribe to stay in the loop throughout the entire offseason with the Green Bay Packers. And since this is a video about Christian Watson, I wanted to remind you guys that I'm still giving away this signed Christian Watson away Packers jersey here. Thank you to Sleeper. Sleeper is a daily fantasy sports app where you can choose between 2 or 8 of your favorite players, choose higher or lower on a given stat. The NBA playoffs, of course, still ongoing right now, so you can choose points, rebounds, assists, even double-doubles, and you simply choose higher or lower on a specific player. You can choose between multiple sports to make your picks. Like I said, 2 to 8 players, and you can win up to 100x payouts. And right now on Sleeper, with the link down in the description and using code BASS, B-A-S, you can get a first-time deposit match up to $100, meaning if you deposit $100, you'll then have $200 in your account to play with. And making a first-time deposit on Sleeper will also enter you in this signed Christian Watson Packers jersey here. This giveaway is only going through the end of May, so you only have a few more days to enter. So make sure if you haven't entered already to go enter by downloading Sleeper, making an account, and also making a first-time deposit. Get your deposit matched and entered in this giveaway. All right, so now let's dive right into the injury updates we have today. We'll start with Christian Watson since we are just talking about him, and this report came out a couple of days ago, and it states Christian Watson went down to University of Wisconsin-Madison this offseason with Eric Stokes to find the cause of their hamstring issues, with Watson finding out there is a difference in his muscle mass in his legs, with his right leg being 20% less than his left. Since he found out, he dropped the difference to about 8 to 10% and has seemed more explosive during practices. Watson is trying to drop the difference to only 6%. So this is very interesting news. I'm someone myself that suffers from something very similar where I have less strength in one leg and my one leg's actually longer than the other, and I have a lot of lower leg injuries. So this makes a lot of sense to see Christian Watson like having a lot of lower leg injuries, considering, you know, his one leg was 20% less strong than the other. And I'm so glad he went out to Madison this offseason with a specialty doctor to try to find this out. And it stated here as well, you know, he has looked more explosive so far in OTAs. And yes, there's no pads on, it's just helmet and jersey. And he looked explosive last year, but he looks even more explosive. Like he's kind of trusting his lower body a little bit better. He's making harder, stronger cuts. He's not worried about that because it seems like he's found the root cause and he's fixing it. So his body probably feels a lot better. His legs feel less tight, right? They're more equal. And this would be huge if this finally is, say, the answer to all the lower leg injuries of Christian Watson. Because if this guy can stay healthy, I mean, we saw it last year. He started to blow up yet again with multiple touchdowns in multiple games, then re-injured the hamstring. If this guy can simply stay healthy, he can be one of the most explosive wide receivers in the NFL. And if he can do that, the Packers wide receiver room can be one of the best in the NFL, with also Romeo Doubs, Jaden Reed, Tay Wick, which I see Tay Wicks blowing up this season. Then you also have Bo Melton and Malik Heath. I mean, this Packers wide receiver room, although doesn't have a true number one by any means, has a ton of depth and a ton of guys that could very well become true number ones. Like the Packers, you know, if everything goes well and Watson stays healthy and Wicks does what I expect him to do, and then also, you know, Jaden Reed, who is also very good, they could have a bunch of just number one and number two wide receivers, but like 4 or 5 of them which that's awesome to have in a wide receiver room for sure. So let's hope that this is the root cause for Christian Watson's lower leg injuries. Of course, we'll get a better idea once training camp starts late July and we go through training camp, we go through padded practices, joint practices, preseason. If he can remain healthy through all of that, it bodes very well for that being the root cause of all the injuries, and hopefully it's finally fixed. So the next injury update is on tight end Tucker Kraft, who we mentioned earlier. We didn't see him during OTAs, and Matt LaFleur said a little bit like, hey, he has a pectoral injury, just like I did, who Matt LaFleur also tore a pectoral. He'll be out until training camp. But we got a little bit of an update this morning, and it is that Tucker Kraft injured while bench pressing and, quote, muscle just popped off the bone, which hearing that does not sound great. And the description is as follows. Green Bay Packers tight end Tucker Kraft was bench pressing when he tore his pectoral muscle while training this offseason. The second-year tight end is expected to be out until training camp while he recovers from surgery. Tucker Kraft was interviewed and he said, just a regular lift. It was my last rep of the day on bench. Nothing crazy, not heavy weight. We were just speed benching and it just popped right off the bone. It's still crazy to hear him just nonchalantly talk about that. Like, yeah, my muscle just popped off the bone, last rep of the day, not heavy weight, just speed rep it. That's just crazy that, this guy just nonchalantly talking about it like it's nothing crazy, and your muscle actually popped off your bone. Like, that is pretty crazy. Kraft was seen in a sling during OTAs last week. A sling is typically used after surgery to immobilize the arm for 4 to 6 weeks. Because the tendon ruptured from the bone, surgery was required for Kraft. While Kraft could miss part of training camp, he should be back with plenty of practice time accrued before the Week 1 opener against the Philadelphia Eagles in Brazil. He'll have almost 4 months of recovery time in between. So that's also an important injury update. I want both of these tight ends to remain healthy. Last season we didn't get much of both of these guys at the same time. And I think if the Packers can have both of these guys at the same time, it can make this offense so much better because both of these guys can be used in a multitude of different ways. Tucker Kraft, more of that traditional inline tight end, but Luke Musgrave, more of that move tight end, can split them out wide. But you can do so many things with both of these guys. And I see a lot of 12 personnel in the Packers offensive future. So hopefully this is a simple surgery, a simple recovery, and Tucker Kraft can come back into action during training camp. Obviously, we'll see when that time comes, but hopefully that is the case. Now, maybe the Packers go out and sign a free agent tight end for the meantime, or maybe they just go through OTAs as stands and then wait until the start of training camp. And if Tucker Kraft is, still injured and behind schedule, then they'd sign a tight end. There's players like Mercedes Lewis, Jeff Swaim, Tyler Croft, Blake Bell. There's some available. It'd be interesting to see the Packers potentially bring back Mercedes Lewis, who just turned 40 years old. I wouldn't be opposed to it, but we'll see. Then finally, we have a quick update on Eric Stokes, who went to the same doctor as Christian Watson to also figure out his lower leg injury. So if both of these guys can figure this out, that's huge for the Packers offense and defense. Green Bay Packers coach Matt LaFleur believes cornerback Eric Stokes is in a great place both physically and mentally after missing most of the last 2 years with injuries. LaFleur said he thinks Stokes and receiver Christian Watson, who both met with hamstring specialists this offseason, quote, are in the best shape he's seen from either player. I think what this offseason has afforded him was an ability to train. It's a lot different when you're coming off an injury and you're trying to rehab versus when you're fully healthy and you can train right away, LaFleur said last week. When you look at him physically, his body looks different. He's hitting some fast speeds out there at practice. I can tell mentally he feels like he's in a great place. Which is huge, right? When you go through injury after injury, I'm sure it can take a toll on your mental, right? When you're a football player and this is your job and you're getting paid to do this and you simply can't remain on the field, that probably wrecks your confidence a little bit. And hopefully that has returned for Eric Stokes. And it's nice to see Matt LaFleur mentioning he's been hitting some high speeds out there at practice because that was a concern for Eric Stokes' future, right? Coming back from all these lower leg injuries, will he return to his high speed or his ability to be fast? That was pretty much his best skill, was his speed ability coming out of Georgia. And probably a lot of the reason why the Packers drafted him so early. A 4.31 40-yard dash before that 2021 draft was very, very impressive. But he was also clocked in at 4.2s during his pro day and whatnot. So extremely fast player. That was a lot of his game. So it's very important for him to return at least somewhat to that, to still have his speed because, a cornerback with a ton of speed can have less great technique and make up for it and rebound with their speed, which is definitely the case for Eric Stokes. So it's very important for him to return to that form, and it seems like right now that is trending in that direction. So those are the 3 important injury updates I have for you guys for the Green Bay Packers through OTAs. You know, we're watching Christian Watson, Eric Stokes this whole offseason, of course, because they've just endured so many injuries. And then Tucker Kraft being a new one. I'm not too worried about it. I think he will return early training camp, but you know, the other 2 we're definitely going to have to keep our eyes on. But I appreciate you guys coming by to the video. If you could, please leave a like down below. It supports the channel a ton, but I'll catch you on the next one. And as always, go Packers.